Hello, Sid Roth here. Welcome to my world, where it's naturally supernatural. My guest is the last living link to the greatest revival to ever hit America. And he says that a greater revival is about ready to come. Now, let me tell you what happened at the Azusa Street revival. He tells stories about people missing limbs, and not just one leg a half an inch shorter than the other and growing out. Missing legs, missing arms, and the arms just shoot right out. And he says he has an anointing that he wants to transfer to whosoever is hungry. Is that you?
Is there a supernatural dimension? A world beyond the one we know? Is there life after death? Do angels exist? Can our dreams contain messages from heaven? Can we tap into ancient secrets of the supernatural? Are healing miracles real? Sid Roth has spent over 35 years researching the strange world of the supernatural. Join Sid for this edition of It's Supernatural.
In 1906, one of the greatest revivals the world has ever known hit America. It was called the Azusa Street Revival. And there was a young man, and he was in trouble. He was an alcoholic. He was a drug addict. He was homeless. And some women from the Azusa Street Revival felt sorry for him, led him to the Lord, set him free. And these were elderly people that actually were part of the Azusa Street Revival. And they told Tommy, your job is to tell the next generation where the greatest move of God's Spirit to ever hit planet Earth, just before Jesus comes, to tell these stories. Tommy, why did they want you to tell these stories?
Because they believed they were anointed and it was going to set forth the revival. When I tell these stories now, Sid, things start happening. People start getting healed. And people start getting ministries themselves, supernaturally, especially when I pray a prayer of impartation on them.
Well, I'm going to have Tommy do that in a little while. But Tommy, tell me about William Seymour, who started the revival.
Seymour is the son of a slave. He wasn't that awful educated, but listen, they said that when the anointing come on him, he started preaching. Man, he'd say words so everybody could understand him, but they were so intelligent. Had an anointing on him all the time, and he was obedient. I don't know that if a pastor could get away with this today, but he had sat on a pew and put a box on his head.
What kind of box?
A wooden box.
Why did he do that?
Well, he said God told him to. And sometimes he'd sit there for 10 minutes, and they said he would sit there before for over an hour.
While all the people were there, he said, how would you like to have a wooden box over your head and you sit there praying in supernatural language for an hour while the congregation is just sitting there? Now, when he'd take the box off, what would happen?
Well, he'd always get up, and then everybody would sit down and start listening. And a lot of times he'd start just walk around, finally he'd say, Charles, he's talking to Brother Sines, play this tune. And when Charles Sines would start playing the tune, he said he wouldn't be long. And he said, Brother Tommy, I'd just sit back and watch my fingers play. And the people in the audience says it sounded like 1,000 pianos playing. And he said he was sitting and looking at the people. Finally, he'd say, now start singing in tongues. And when this starts, what he'd say in the spirit, but that meant tongues. When they start singing in tongues, that Shekinah glory that lingered on the floor would start rising, and it would fill the whole building. And then a flame would shoot up out of the roof, a big flame. Had the fire department called many times.
It was real.
Yeah.
All right, it would shoot out of the roof, but you told me another flame, a bolt of lightning almost would come from heaven. Explain that.
Well, it would shoot up about 50 feet, they said. And then about 50 feet from that, a ball of fire would appear. And flames would start shooting down and go through the flames that were coming up.
What were these flames? What was the point of this?
Well, I know, I had a Jewish rabbi explain to me that there are flaming angels mingling through each other in the Bible. This is known. He said those angels, the flames that were shooting down were angels bringing miracles to Azusa Street, and the ones going up were going back to get more miracles. And that's during that time of the flames is when the great miracles would happen.
Now, they had wonderful, creative miracles. It's going to be hard for you to believe. Tell me about the man that had an artificial arm.
He had even his shoulder blade here ripped out at a job, and back then they didn't have the benefits they had now. He had an artificial arm hanging on it, but it was starting to really give him some trouble. And Seymour said, well, y'all need to take the artificial arm off. And he looked at the audience and said, y'all want to have some fun like we did about a year ago when the man's leg grew out? He said, well, we're going to. And he laid his hands on his shoulder. Brother Garcia looked down and said, Brother Tommy, I could look down into that hole in his shoulder and see the bone. He said he started praying for it, and he said all of a sudden the bone started growing out. In about 4 inches, the flesh started growing around it. And he said, I sat there, it took only seconds, but to him, it was slow motion. And he watched it as it just grew out. And he says, then he watched as the fingernails appeared all of a sudden.
You know, if that would happen for me, I'd put a wooden box on my head. Would you do it? I know you would. We'll be right back. I can't wait for him to pray for this impartation for you.
Yes. We'll be right back to It's Supernatural.
What if today you could actually receive the same anointing that was upon William Seymour, the great revival pioneer and father of the Azusa Street movement? Call now and get Tommy Welchell's anointed book, Stories of the Miracles of Azusa Street and Beyond, and his power.